Assalamu alaikum, boys and girls. Welcome to Story Time, and I'm Sophia. Today's show is a continuation of the wonderful story of Prophet Musa. I sure hope you didn't miss yesterday's episode, but just in case you did, or in case you forgot what happened, let's recap. In Egypt, a long time ago, there was a very mean pharaoh who ordered all of the baby boys in his kingdom to be killed because he had a vision that one day one of the boys would grow up to take his throne from him. Allah told Musa's mom to pack him in a box and sail him down the river Nile rather than kill him. She was afraid, but she had faith in Allah. Baby Musa was rescued and ended up being adopted by the queen, who fell in love with him. She was the wife of the same pharaoh who wanted all of the children dead. What do you think about that? One day, Musa fled the kingdom after an altercation with a villager. A short stop at a watering hole for some rest turned into a lovely marriage for Musa, and he lived happily ever after with his wife and her family, caring for her father's farm for 10 years. When we landed the last episode, Prophet Musa officially received his prophecy from Allah and was setting out to return to Egypt for the first time with his wife, children, and brother Harun to convince the Pharaoh that Allah was the Almighty and the only one deserving of being worshipped. Okay, boys and girls, who's ready to hear what happened next? I know I am. Prophet Musa alayhi salam now stood at the royal palace with his brother Harun alongside him. He had not seen Egypt for many years. How many? That's 10 years to be exact. He knew that his life was in danger. Nothing could have brought him back except the command of Allah. Prophet Musa could still hear the words of Allah ringing in his ears. Go to the Pharaoh and tell him to let the Israelites leave the land of Egypt. The Israelites had been the Pharaoh's slaves for far too long, and it was time they were freed. Musa alayhi salam climbed the golden steps that led to the Pharaoh's throne. When he reached the top, he said, "O Pharaoh, I am the apostle of the Lord of the worlds. Let the Israelites go with me and do not harm them. There will be peace to all those who follow the guidance of Allah." Pharaoh listened to Musa's speech, but he did not care. He thought that Musa was crazy because he dared to question his supreme position. Then he raised his hand and he asked, "What do you want?" So Musa answered, "I want you to send the children of Israel with us." Pharaoh asked, "Why should I send them, as they are my slaves?" Musa replied, "They are not yours. They are the slaves of Allah, the Lord of all of the worlds." Pharaoh then inquired sarcastically if his name was Musa. Musa said, "Well, yes." "Are you not the Musa whom we picked up from the Nile as a helpless little baby? Are you not the Musa whom we reared in this palace, brought up like a king, who ate and drank from our provisions, and with whom our wealth showered with charity? Are you not the Musa who is now a fugitive, the one who killed an Egyptian man? If my memory serves me right, it is said that killing is also an act of disbelief of your God. Therefore, you were also a disbeliever when you killed the man. You are a fugitive of justice, and you come to speak to me? What are you talking about, Musa? What were you thinking? I forgot." Musa knew that the Pharaoh mentioning his past, his upbringing, and his receiving of Pharaoh's charity was Pharaoh's way of threatening him. Musa ignored his sarcasm. He knew that Allah had sent him on a message, and that message was to tell him about the bounties of Allah and the possible punishment for not believing in him. Musa explained that he is not a disbeliever, and when he killed the Egyptian, he only went astray, and Allah the Almighty had not yet given him the revelation at that time. He was a simple man at that time, but now he knew much better. Now he had Allah strong in his heart. He made Pharaoh understand that he fled from Egypt because he was afraid that the Pharaoh would seek revenge upon him. Even though the killing was just an accident, it was not intentional. He informed him that Allah had granted him forgiveness and even made him one of his messengers. You see, boys and girls, when you are sincere, even the biggest of mistakes can be forgiven by Allah. Allah is the most forgiving. So even when you think you've made a mistake that is too huge, Allah will take care of you once you are sincere and you truly, truly seek forgiveness. Musa went on to warn the Pharaoh of all of the dangers that would occur if he did not follow the guidance of Allah. But the Pharaoh refused to listen because he truly thought that he himself was a god. He looked around him and he saw all the riches. He was sure there could never be anyone more powerful than he. But he did not realize that having wealth was not power. The Pharaoh asked Musa to show a sign from Allah. So the prophet drew down his rod and he began to move and slither like a snake, just as it did before. The Pharaoh was scared, but he tried hard not to show it. "Ha!" said the Pharaoh in a prideful way. "I have sorcerers that can match your magic. Don't try that with me." Then Musa showed him his radiant hand, and it glowed with a shining white light. But still, the Pharaoh did not believe that Musa was a messenger of Allah. He said, "I can build a throne that is as high as your Lord's throne, Musa, and I will prove that your power from Allah is weak compared to my power." Pharaoh asked Musa how he dared to worship another god other than him. The punishment for this crime was imprisonment. It was not permitted for anyone to worship anyone other than the Pharaoh. The Pharaoh was going to send him to jail. The Pharaoh searched the lands of Egypt for the best sorcerers and magicians available. When he found them, he brought them to his court and told them that if their magic was better than Musa's, then they would be rewarded handsomely. The sorcerers readily agreed to the plan because they were greedy and they did not know who Musa was. Prophet Musa did not have any magic, but he had something more powerful than that. He had the true signs from Allah. They counseled Pharaoh to detain Musa and his brother while they summoned up all of the cleverest magicians in the country to assist them. Then they too could show their skills of magic and change their sticks into serpents. In this way, they sought to reduce the influence of Musa's miracles on the people. They were afraid that if the people saw all of Musa's power, then they would think that he was much better and more worthy of worship and praise. But they did not know that Musa was not looking for worship. Musa was just looking for the people to understand that Allah the Almighty, was the all-powerful. On the day of the contest, the Pharaoh's court was filled with many people from all around the city. It was like a great big fair. Everyone in the room sided with the Pharaoh and left Musa all alone. But I'm pretty sure that was out of fear. They all knew the punishment they'd get if they did not side with the Pharaoh. Have you ever met anyone like that, boys and girls? Anyone who ever bullied you into going somewhere you don't want to go or doing something that you don't want to do? See, that's why we must have faith in Allah. Musa remembered that Allah was with him, so he had absolutely no problem speaking up against the Pharaoh and standing up for himself. Before it began, Musa rose up, and there was a hush in the huge crowd. Shh. Musa addressed the magicians. Woe unto you if you invent a lie against Allah by calling his miracles magic or sorcery, and by not being honest with the Pharaoh. Woe unto you if you do not know the difference between the truth and falsehood. Allah will destroy you with his punishment, for he who lies against Allah fails miserably. Musa had spoken sincerely, and he made the magicians think. But they were too overwhelmed by their greed for money and glory to be afraid of Allah. They only wanted to impress the people with their magic and to expose Musa as a fraud and a cheat. They did not fear that Allah would punish men for the tricks and the lies against Allah. The sorcerers had assembled their ropes and their sticks and asked Musa if he wished to have them go first. But Musa said, "No, you have the first throw." And so they did. All of a sudden, Musa saw snakes and wiggly things, and their magic appeared to be powerful. Allah said to Prophet Musa, "Throw your stick now." When the piece of wood fell to the ground, it turned into a snake. It began to wiggle, and it became an enormous serpent. The people stood up, stretching their necks for a better view. Pharaoh and his men sat silently. One by one, Musa's huge serpent swallowed up all of the snakes. After the last sorcerer's rope had been swallowed, Musa bent and picked it up. And once again, his staff was there. His piece of wood was back in his hand. No more snake. The crowd rose like a shining wave, shouting and screaming with excitement. A wonder like this had never been seen before. But then a hush fell over the crowded court, and the onlookers saw the way that the sorcerers looked at each other, confused. They had been defeated. They turned to Musa, now realizing that Musa was not a magician or a sorcerer. They knew that Musa's power came from something far greater than anything human. The sorcerers then fell on their knees to beg Allah for forgiveness for their evil ways. "We believe in the Lord of Musa and Harun," they all said, begging Allah to guide them. And now the Pharaoh was angry, and he began to plot his next move. Allah forgave the sorcerers, but the Pharaoh grew more and more angry. "How can you believe in Allah before I give you permission?" he said angrily. "If you don't get up right now, I'll have your arms and your legs cut off, and you will be killed." The sorcerers said, "Do what you will, but we fear the punishment of Allah, much more than we fear any torture you could do us." He accused them of secretly arranging this spectacle between Musa and the magicians. He demanded that the magicians confess to their scheme, threatening them with death. They refused to denounce Allah and stuck to the sincerity of their belief in Allah. The Pharaoh now realized he had a problem. Musa once again demanded that the Israelites leave Egypt, but the Pharaoh still would not allow it. Musa and Harun left, and the Pharaoh returned to his palace. Pharaoh was completely stupefied when he faced the two miracles.